Hello, my name is Jeffrey Hammond, and I'm a Vice President and Principal Analyst at Forrester Research, where I cover modern software development technologies and software delivery best practices. I'm here today with Hannes Maier from Zooom Productions and David Cardella from Esri to talk about the increasing importance of location as part of a range of customer employee experiences and how developers can tap into it as they are building apps or digital products and services. Thanks for joining me today, guys. Can you take a few seconds and tell us about yourselves and what you do? Hannes?
Hi, many thanks for the opportunity to join this conversation today. My name is Hannes Maier. I'm working at the Zooom Productions company located in Fuschl am See in Austria, in Europe. And my role is head of digital and project lead for the Red Bull X-Alps project.
David?
Great, thank you. Hi, I'm David Cardella. I am a product manager here at Esri, and I manage our developer products. So it's a real pleasure to be here with the two of you. Thank you.
Awesome. So I'll lead off. I want to start with some data that reflects what we're seeing at Forrester with respect to the need for location and geospatial services. In 2021, Forrester's Global Marketing Survey found that about 1/3 of marketing decision makers plan to use location-based intelligence technologies over the next 12 months. Now, when you drill into that data to look at what these folks want to do with location, you see a number of different scenarios emerge. Location for use in marketing analytics is a common example. In our 2021 Business Technographics Data and Analytics Survey, we see that 2/3 of data and analytics technology decision makers have or are implementing customer location and spatial analytics, and another 18% would like to do so. So almost 4 out of 5. Personalization by geographic region is another example of where demand marketers are employing location intelligence. More than half of them are personalizing experiences by country, even by city, and a third are personalizing by device location. So there's high interest among marketing and data decision makers, but someone actually has to make location intelligence work for them. And that's where my folks, the developers, come in. Hannes, that's also where you come in. Could you tell us about your experience with implementing location?
Well, nowadays I have to say location is everywhere, and it's hard to think about a world without the location service. It's regardless where you look at, if it's advertising, paid advertising, for example, but especially in our case here, the project we are running is the Red Bull X-Alps, where we use the location-based service to bring an event to your computer in your living room, basically, or in your office, So the Red Bull X-Alps, to go a little bit into detail of this project about this event, is happening every second year with about 30 athletes, and it's a race, an adventure race, where we have the hike and fly disciplines in there, where the athletes need to go through the Alps, a certain route with certain turn points, we call them. And as you can imagine, traveling through the whole Alps, it's not possible to cover this live somehow with cameras or with media teams or with helicopters. It's just too big. The distance they go is over 770 miles, So what we did here is to pick up the location service and track them every second for 2 weeks, whatever they do, and bring this with some algorithms, let's name it like this, on the computer in your living room. So we have to calculate all this data. We have to assume what they do because of the data they deliver us, and this is the part of the location-based integration in this whole system. That's the heart of the event, to bring such a big area onto a live tracking system that you can follow from your office.
Hannes, so the athletes are actually wearing devices that
Yes.
provide that location data?
Yes.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So device specific is the what you're doing here in this case. You're collecting the device specific data.
We are collecting device-specific locator with 3 different sensors. The main sensor is a GSM-based sensor which delivers the data every second or records the data every second. and then transmits it to those servers where we prepare this data, and go through the data and analyze the data and build statistics and make the animations. Then we have a satellite-based backup tracking device, which is also live, but only delivers, I think, it's 1.5 minutes. A GPS point. This comes into effect when the GSM is not reachable, which happens in the Alps, And then
you mean you don't have 4 bars in the Alps all the time? I can't imagine.
No, especially. But I have to say, there is a certain area above the mountains where you have a really good reception. So we had already athletes flying in 3,500 meters having a Facebook Live, That's is incredible. And the third device we have is an offline logger. So they collect their data every second as well on a SD card. And this is what we use as the last backup device. And in former times, it was always a dedicated product we recommend to the athletes. Right now, the technological progress is advancing so fast that you can also use your smartwatch. We have this backup track then, for example, so the things get smaller, that the power and the performance get better of those devices, and also the GSM reception is getting better, of course.
Tell me a little bit about the team that built this. How many developers were there, and what kind of skills did they have?
Well, actually, the live tracking I'm taking care of is something we are doing for 20 years right now. So the first event happened in 2003, and starting with the first event, we had the first live tracking, which was not live. It was, I think, half an hour late or something. And it was also, showing not every second, it was once a minute. And the GPS point, and the route was much smaller. But from this time, it evolved and it got bigger, and the team also, in 20 years changed through a little bit, and also the technological possibilities changed. Right now, the team is not so big, I have to say. The team consists of, I think, 2 backend developers, and 1.5 front-end developer, because many of those things, when it comes to the front end, they are a little bit plug and play. You just to know how. That's the point,
Yeah, it kind of goes to the value of why you would use a platform, right? And why you would use services, because it allows you to work with a much smaller team.
Yeah, it is. It is scalable, so you can scale it up and you can scale it down always.
Okay, simple question from my perspective. Did the athletes themselves actually get access to the location technology? Do they get to see where the other teams are, so they can see if a team is making progress on them? So it actually kind of lends to the competitive nature of the race, huh?
Well, actually, yes, they have, because the live tracking itself, it is live. It's for the public, so you know where the teams are. But what you don't see, are the supporters. Maybe to go a little bit into detail of this whole event, it's each athlete has a so-called supporter on his side, because the athlete, he's hiking, he's flying, he needs to carry his own stuff, but of course he needs someone to be on his side with the caravan for sleeping somewhere outside, because they're landing somewhere. And also for cooking and whatever needs to be done besides marching or hiking and flying, the supporter does. Also weather information, for example, is a very important topic which the supporter collects. And beside this team, we also have a lot of media teams in the field to make on dedicated points. Of course, we have the photographers and the videographers. There are also social teams to cover the story. The Red Bull X-Alps is about the athlete and the story on the route to the goal. And to cover this, I think there are 12 teams out there, but they are on dedicated points. So we know then when an athlete passes a turn point, we know at this location we can take good photos. or good videos, but if he's between any turn point, you don't know where he is. So beside those people are not tracked. So what is seen in the public are only the athletes. Who we track is the whole field on an extra screen, and they don't have access to it. So the tactical thing is, where does the supporter go to with the car to explore the next day? And this the other teams don't see.
So I assume that means you have to create different user experiences. Yes. There's kind of the experience for the folks that are following the race. There's the experience for the folks that are participating in the race and supporting the race as well, right?
Yeah. For sure, they're totally different needs. So the athlete is on his way. He's in the race. The supporter is more, as I said, the tactical decision maker together with the athlete. So they are looking into the weather, for example, and preparing to route. And then there's the whole team, the whole media team, which needs to be covered as well. So we need to track them. We have supporters on the route as well. So medical runners, we have a race doctor, of course, and the race director. We need to track them. Where are they? And if something happens with an athlete, we need to be able to guide the supporter or a runner or a medical person to this athlete, for example. So this is where location-based service comes into effect as well, which we use, of course, So they are really using those platforms we build up to find the pilot, the athlete, on the fastest route.
I imagine since you've been doing this since 2003, you've gotten better and better access to location intelligence. How's that changed how you've evolved that user experience, and how have you injected that sort of intelligence into the applications?
Well, how to say? There are two major things which play into our cards or into our hands. The one thing is the development of the cloud services, which we can now leverage and use to have a better performance in compiling the data and analyzing the data. On the other hand, we have much faster and better computers and better front ends. We can then deliver and build this whole scene up in 3D as well. So it's not only that you have a two-dimensional display; it's a really 3D scene where you can walk through and guide or follow the athlete. If this was your question in terms of intelligence.
Right. I guess that lets you produce a much more compelling experience for the race watchers, especially if you can start to do things in 3D. Yes. Given the race itself is a very three-dimensional race, isn't it?
Well, actually, you're in the Alps. Everything is 3D out there. We just sometimes we have been limited to make things two-dimensional because we were not able to leverage 3D in the past. Currently, it's in this edition. It was really it was a game changer. We had it in 2019 already, but we brought it to the next step together with Esri in the 2021 edition. Things like not only watching an athlete in his paraglider in 3D flying around the Alps, but also sitting or having a look through the athlete's eyes. So switching to the first person view, or we call it cockpit view, and flying directly with the athlete is a totally new experience, I have to say.
And I mean, to do that, a lot of folks, when developers, I think about location, they think about, a point on a map, but they don't necessarily think about the Z scale of that and the altitude and the role that can play. But that's a critical part of the data that you need to be successful here.
Yes, the story is a little bit around with the data we get, So the data is for us. The clean data and correct data is the entry point to deliver a user experience. You need to imagine it's a different story. If you go running, if you go flying with a paraglider, for normally you have your tracker and you click on start. And when you have finished, you click on stop. And in this time, this track was a running track or this track was a flying track. We have a different kind of story. They turn these devices on when they stand up at 5 in the morning. and then they just deliver points to us. They every second a point, and we get all those packages and need to find out, based on the data they delivered us, what have they been doing? Was he running along the street? Was he flying? Was he resting? And this is where, you know, those technologies come into place as well, where we then check based on the historical data, where historical means the last 10 seconds, what he has been doing, and where it comes to effect. Is this point we are right now looking at, is this a valid point, or is this because of any transmission error or GPS echo or whatever, a point which cannot be in reality? So if he is flying in 100 meters for the last 10 seconds, and then all of a sudden, because of an echo of the GPS signal, for example, which you have when you fly very near to the mountains, you know, all of a sudden he has a point which is in the mountain or somewhere else. We need to get this out. We need to calculate this. We need to analyze this. We need to calculate this, and we need to flatten this data. And this is right. This is one point where, you know, the whole where we are already working on with the whole Esri team to improve this for the 23 edition even more than we have it right now, which is a game changer then again.
David, I want to bring you in on this because, you know, in some ways the use case that Hannes is talking about here is a pretty extreme use case. I mean, you're out of cell phone range, you're you know, up the face of the Alps, and you know, that's you know, not necessarily, I think, a use case that a lot of other developers would have, but still, some of these capabilities, how often do you find that they're an absolute requirement when you think about a location intelligence platform, and how do you provide for the complexities of the real world in the services that you make available?
Yeah, it's very few applications are this extreme. Let's say we're you know, Hannes, you're tracking professional athletes through the Alps, and you're using 3D data, which gives a completely immersive experience to the users of your applications, but also to the support teams that you described. And so we're seeing use cases that are extreme like this. More common, though, are use cases that chronicle outdoor experiences. So this whole trend of chronicling outdoor experiences, whether you're on a hike or you're riding a bike, is really a trend that we're seeing our location services being used in. And Hannes, you started off by saying location is everywhere. And as you were talking, I was thinking, wow, that's not only is it a true statement, but it's a very deep statement, and it really is very true for everything that certainly that we do. And so also with this outdoor trend, we've got a number of folks building hunting and fishing applications that not only map the nearby or locations that are best for doing that, but also allow the users of those applications to rate and to add data to that. Another example is camping. Camping has become even more popular during COVID because it was one of the few things that we could actually do that was considered safe. And so we've got applications out there that not only show the location of campgrounds, but also optimal spots based on the size of your camper, and also optimal routes based on the size of your camper. So you're not going to get routed to a low-hanging a bridge if you've got a camper that's 15 feet high, for example.
I can think of some folks that need that up in the Boston area when they're driving into the city, you know.
Yeah, certainly. So we're certainly seeing that trend, Hannes, with the application that you've seen. But Jeffrey, we're seeing trends in other industries as well. Natural resources, specifically agriculture industries, where farmers want to map their land and gauge where the most fertility is based on the crop that they're producing. But financial institutions, insurance companies. Location is so important to them because it affects, they can assess risk based on their customer's location and then ultimately come up with premiums. But real estate applications, not only where you want to live or the house that you're looking for and what street it's on, but what schools are nearby, what restaurants are nearby, public transportation, that sort of thing. So, location really is everywhere. I think that was such a great comment.
It's also interesting because it's not just the geographic location, but the context of what's going on around it. So as an example, I think of coming home from the airport last night, and there's a lot of construction going on where I live on the interstate. And, I found myself in the backwoods of South Carolina at 9 o'clock last night because of the backup in traffic. And it's like, it's a good thing I've got, my location services at work here, because I've got no idea where I am. And if I break down, it's going to be a very, very bad night. But the ability to actually understand that there are dynamic factors that affect the relative user experience and how you can provide that information, and the integration of that information with kind of the raw location data that really starts to provide value. And it seems to me that that's something that really developers are best positioned to take advantage of, because you can't know in advance all the different places that you're going to need to get information from to apply the right amount of context. And the ability to find it, to quickly take advantage of it, and then to use it to add value to the location is just something that increasingly developers need to be able to do. I would imagine in your case, there's a lot of data that you're mixing in on top of that raw location data and analyzing it, and then using that to enrich the value of it.
Yeah, as I said, the Red Bull X-Alps is the story of the athlete from the start to the goal, and we are, in terms of reporting, we are on his footsteps. So right. we are how to say, we are writing a so-called race news feed every 15 minutes, based on, the editors write this based on what they see in the live tracking. So they are also experts in paragliding, and they know the terrain, of course, they know the Alps, and they know exactly where they can fly, or where the athletes can fly, and bring this knowledge to the audience as well, which is location-based knowledge. Sorry. I'm
curious. Do you have the ability to start to even juice the data feed? So, for example, you can say, well, based on what we know about these two teams, this team's starting to catch up to this other team, and this is a place that you should be watching over the next 2 hours. Or are you not quite there yet?
Yes, we are there. So what we are doing is, in terms of communication around the whole Red Bull X-Alps. When I said that the development team is 2 backend developers and 2 front-end developers, or 1.5, this is because we rolled out a system that we had. The team behind it for the whole Red Bull X-Alps, I think it's about 80 people. So the event is a quite large event to bring this to life, and communication is key of this. And what we are doing to bring this event to our audience, which is not always, in the niche of paragliders, the audience is a broad audience, which and the people sometimes do not have this deep knowledge of flying or paragliding. So what we are doing, we are explaining this as well in different stories, and also giving them an overview in the morning what this day might bring in terms of strategic decisions of the different teams. Do they go the north route or do they go the south route? Where can they be with this kind of weather information we have right now? And at the evening, we make a debriefing. What has happened this day? And also an outlook for the next day, because the teams, the athletes, they plan the next day in the evening of the current day. If you see, that's really an interesting thing. If you see an athlete in the night hours marching up a mountain, then you can expect that he takes off in the next morning from this mountain and tries to make a long flight. So they are planning their next day and preparing for the next flight on the current day. And this is also, everything comes together. The location, can they go up there? The information for the route to up a mountain, also the weather information, which is also different from in this big area where this race happens. You have totally different weather situations based on the location where you are.
I have to say it's pretty slick.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna put you on the spot for a second. Why Arcgis, and what's the experience been like for the developers on your team?
Well, I know the company and I know the technology from the past already, So I was playing around with the 3D and especially with the satellite images we are using from the platform right now in the past. And this is good satellite images are a big advantage for the user experience because, as you can imagine, if you follow an athlete who flies 50 meters from the mountains, thermaling up, you need high resolution images in the 3D scene that you can follow this. And why we, from our point, partnered up with Esri was and using the platform was because it's just easy. It's just easy to use. It's to bring the satellite images in the 3D environment and also having them mapped correctly in the 3D environment together with the mesh we are using. It was easy, and it was, especially in terms of performance, it was a no-brainer, I have to say. So,
and David, that ease of use doesn't just happen. I know that you guys have invested a lot in trying to create a good developer experience. You want to tell me a little bit about some of the things that you've been doing to make those investments?
Yeah, developer experience is actually everything. Because you can have a good set of high quality services, but if a developer can't leverage them, then they don't mean much. So we've put a lot of effort into ArcGIS platform to make essentially a frictionless experience for developers. Mm-hmm. And it's not only frictionless from the standpoint of technology, but frictionless from the standpoint of the business perspective as well. We've seen too many times where the business rules or guidelines get in the way of actual development. So we needed to do that.
It's so funny. One of the things I found in my research is the only people that developers want to talk to less than salespeople are lawyers. Okay, so that friction-free process is really, really important. I gotta say.
Yeah, and so what we've tried to do is provide Hannes and his team and other developers, and I agree, Jeffrey, developers are so well positioned and suited to take advantage of location services, but we've tried to provide them a set of independent on-demand services that developers can just pick and choose and use at their whim or at their will. And we also didn't want the library, the API that the developer chooses to get in the way either. So it's very important to us that our services work seamlessly and can be integrated into, for example, Leaflet or Open Layers, or GLJS is a popular tile library. Cesium, Hannes, is popular in the 3D space, as you and your team are very familiar with. But we wanted to make it as easy as possible for teams to leverage the investment that they could have already made in their application, but simply pivot to a set of powerful location services from Esri. So that's that's one aspect of it. But and it's funny, we were talking about this before. Reusable code is important, I believe, in the developer experience. And if you don't have a library of tutorials and also reusable code snippets that a developer can very easily leverage and bring into their application, it's such a time saver, and it makes it much easier for the developer to learn concepts that they may not have been familiar with.
Absolutely critical. I mean, in the research that we've done around developer engagement, it starts with awareness, but then you go to learning, and from learning to prototyping. And those assets, that reusable code, is what helps developers go from learning about the platform to actually using the platform to solve their problem. And that's a critical part of getting value out of any set of services, even location or otherwise.
Yeah, completely agree, Jeffrey.
Yeah. From my side as well, I have to say.
Yeah.
If it's getting too complicated from a developing perspective, you're just you're losing. It needs to be it needs to be flexible, and it needs to be scalable in terms of performance. So one KPI I always have in mind is the number of requests we have in the 3D environment for getting those satellite images, and within the first 3 days we had about 80 million of them. So 8 million 3D satellite images were requested by users, and this is an amount, I would say.
Well, it certainly is an indication that the platform is compelling from a user perspective.
Yeah.
It's interesting because my takeaways about the importance of location and that it's everywhere, and it's funny because you've got all these folks thinking about the metaverse, and yet it's the real world where there's so much opportunity, and as I'm seeing a next generation of cloud native applications, they're being built planet scale, and location is one of the most important aspects of how they're being built and being able to really optimize the use of resources. So it just seems like something that is going to be a major part of the developer experience as we go forward. So I realize we're getting short on time. Hannes, I want to thank you very much for being willing to share your story today. It's pretty cool. I have to say, it's got to be a fun application to work on. And David, I appreciate you providing the perspective of what it takes to create something that is developer friendly and that is easy to use as well. So, any parting thoughts before we wrap things up?
I just wanted to thank you, Jeffrey, for your time today, and Hannes, your story today and your experience. Thank you for taking the time to share that with us. I found it compelling. It was amazing. Thank you.
I have to say thanks again very much for the opportunity to be here, and also thanks. I will also let the team know and forwards what we talked here. It's really great, I have to say. Thanks a lot.
That's great. Y'all have a great day, and thanks everyone for listening.